Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems, audio-visual systems for your home or office, home automation, security, and life safety systems. They do it all. Safety Systems is a locally owned, family-owned business, been doing it for 20-plus years. VFL JJ Surlis will take good care of you, and I want to thank you for always blowing their doors off. So many of you call them. I appreciate it, and they appreciate it. So Safety Systems, give them a shout this week, safetysystems.com to learn more. Let me welcome in the final member of today's panel. Right down there, we got Bob Hodge, longtime sports writer, longtime member of the panel. You're at the far right today.
That's a long ways away.
That's right, yeah. So, Bob, it's surprising you being on the far right.
Yes.
Interesting. All right. Let's do a Barnes-Pearl comparison here. If you asked most Vol fans who's had far more success at their school, Pearl at Auburn or Barnes at Tennessee, I think the answer is easily Pearl's had far more success. When you break it down and look at the numbers, the perception is not quite the same. Let's take a look at what these guys have done in their runs at their current schools. All right, you see that Rick Barnes has been to 3 NCAA tournaments at Tennessee. Bruce Pearl has been to 2 NCAA tournaments. Now, he would have been to 3 if not for the COVID year, and Tennessee wasn't getting in that year, so it should be 3-3. But Tennessee, you look at it, Tennessee didn't have to miss one due to the NCAA. Which, is kind of a Pearl thing. On the other hand, that round of 4, that final 4 thing over there on the right, that's big. That's kind of huge. So does that cancel out everything else? But bottom line is, I think a lot of people would look at that and say, oh, Pearl's just great every year down there. 2 NCAA tournament trips. His winning percentage is basically 1 point lower than Barnes here at Tennessee. Now, Barnes opened against Pearl down there 3-1 when he arrived at Tennessee. He's now lost 6 straight, so Pearl leads 7-3 head-to-head. So that adds into it as well. But I do think the perception is a little bit crazier than the reality of the actual numbers. But if you went out on the street today and did a man-on-the-street interview, everyone would say, Pearl's dominant down there. Because you don't really pay attention when he's losing. It's just when he's winning that's all people around here focus on. That said, to get Auburn to number 1, to get it to where people are freaking out and charging the floor when you knock off Auburn, a huge accomplishment. But my question, Bob Hodge, would the perception of Rick Barnes, and I think he's popular around here, but would he be more popular if Bruce Pearl weren't coaching in the Southeastern Conference?
Oh, I think he would be a couple of levels. I actually think he might be a little less popular because of it than you do. Because Bruce Pearl was so popular here, he was so well-liked, he was such a showman, he brought Tennessee basketball back more or less from the dead. I think Rick Barnes suffers a great deal because of it, and the 6-game losing streak just makes it that much worse. And now, if he loses to Bruce Pearl on Saturday, but Tennessee ends up having a better postseason run, next year when it all starts again, the game against Bruce Pearl that he loses will be the perception. Not, well, we did better than the tournament than he did. Yeah. So yeah, I think it knocks him down a couple of notches.
How much does it impact?
I think it hurts him too, and I think there are 2 primary factors, and Bob mentioned one of them. But Pearl's won 6 in a row against Rick Barnes, and I had a booster call me the other day about asking me that question. Now, what's the record between Pearl and Barnes? And when I mentioned it to him, he was like, man. But the 6 in a row. The other part of it is that Final Four. Tennessee's never been to Final Four. If Tennessee had been to 5 Final Fours, it wouldn't grate on Tennessee fans as much. But Auburn got to Final Four, the first one they'd ever made. I think those 2 things, the Final Four and the fact Pearl's won 6 in a row, hurt Barnes.
I think the other piece of it is the entertainment value. As far as BP up and down the sidelines, doing all his marketing, rah-rah stuff, and that's part of it. And then the way his teams play. I mean, up-tempo, transition, pressing, switching stuff compared to where you see on Barnes. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they don't press, but I think some fans would rather take a pressing BP defense as opposed to Barnes, even though Barnes' teams are far and away better defensively most years.
It's just not as exciting.
It's not as exciting, and that entertainment value is the other piece of that plays into it.
People love those junk baskets.
Hell yeah.
Isaiah, your thoughts on Bruce Pearl's impact on Rick Barnes, the fact that Pearl's in the conference, that is just a specter that lurks behind Rick Barnes at all times, in our opinion. Do you agree or disagree?
I think it's some of that there. I think it was he had a bigger impact on Conzo Martin because he came after him. But I do think, like Jimmy said, the wins, man. He's got the 6-game win streak on us, and he's got the Final Four. So I put it purely on those two things myself. Because if we go to the Final Four and he doesn't, you know, I think it'll be a little bit of a different view. I think it's the wins and losses.
See, I wonder. I think that the Pearl factor is big, very big. But even if Pearl weren't in the league, I think people would still look at Rick Barnes' tournament resume, and that would be what the focus went to. But I do think Pearl impacts the overall issue. And while we were in break there, and we were talking about the number of tournaments that Pearl has been to, you said, yeah, but the Final Four, which gets back to the point you made in the last segment, that it's a tournament sport in terms of remembering SEC championships. It's great that you got a banner, but one Final Four, that trumps the fact that he's had 6 years down there where he didn't go to a tournament.
And it makes people forget about the NCAA stuff. I mean, that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
other piece of it.
Yeah.
That's a big,
What
Brad, that
NCAA?
penalty that was on the screen. I mean, that's a big thing.
Self-imposed.
The other, the other, because they knew the hangman was walking into the door.
Got ahead.
The interesting thing, though, is, you know, one of the reasons I thought it was wise for Tennessee just to give Barnes the money when they did. You know, he keeps it between the lines. You're going to be a good program. He's going to run it the right way. And I've always thought Pearl at Auburn Auburn is the cheatingest school in the SEC. That's not a viewpoint. That's fact. Go look at the number of violations they've had over the years. I thought that was a bad mix, and it has been. You've got an assistant coach in jail. You've got penalties. You've got suspensions for Pearl, all that stuff. But now that the NCAA is going bye-bye and losing its teeth, now that kind of changes the way that, oh, you want Rick Barnes because he runs a good program, and steer away from Bruce because he's dirty. Okay, now if the rules don't matter, give me Bruce Pearl. Yeah. I think that might change some people's viewpoints. Anyway,
See how many sandwiches he can give people now. Going back to the barbecue here.
Okay, gotcha. Mark, I tell you what, next segment, let's get your insights on the barbecue. You were there we were out of time?
Yeah.
We'll do that another time before you go running out the door away from
That
us.
was a bad rule.
Isaiah, Mark, thanks for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
When we come back, let's talk about the NIL stuff. In case you didn't see it this week, David Oven of The Athletic wrote a really interesting point about a group here in town, Spire Sports, who are the collective raising money for Tennessee. What's a collective? How does this stuff work? Insights are coming next, and your jaws will drop. Come on back on the Sports Source.